so our presentation today is about using specifically the HP tablets that were distributed after Power of One last year, and that have also been purchased by a number of sites on their own to be used in the classroom. So our presentation is about how can we use them as effective tools for teaching, for learning, for delivering instruction. And we're going to be kind of sharing the presentation, and in part that's intentional, so we can see the mobility, you can see how the tablet works, and we're obviously using the tablet so you can see it. We will most likely experience the same technical issues during our presentation as you will during your teaching. You just saw right there, we couldn't reconnect with the Action Tech device right away. So I unplugged it, plugged it back in, and then reconnected, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through the presentation. But we know that, like any tool, it's imperfect, but we use it every day as educators, and so we wanted to share kind of how they're being used, because we know that a lot of them were purchased and then really were not used to their full capacity. So Chris is going to start us off. We'll give this to him.
Chris. Thank you. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Thanks, Ron. Well, as always, we want to ground our work in E4, and especially after that inspiring talk this morning about how we really want to meet all of these bubbles that we have in our Elk Grove E4, whether it's wellness, how are we engaging our community, et cetera, and all of our professional learning opportunities we want to ground somewhere within this. So today, this morning, we're going to be focusing mostly on high quality classroom instruction and curriculum, and how we can utilize technology, specifically the tablets, toward that end for our students. Spelled out in the LCAP goal, the strategic goal for this section, I'll just read it to you briefly, is that all students will have access to standards-aligned curriculum and receive high-quality instruction to promote college, career, and life readiness and eliminate the achievement gap. So as I mentioned, our end today is to see how can we utilize the tablets we've received to help enhance that instruction. Maybe it's in taking strategies we're already using, maybe with paper and pencil, and extending that to a digital platform, but also having an eye toward and researching and looking for new ways to integrate what's working, how are teachers making their instruction more effective for student learning using these tablets.
And Letty's going to tell you all about what is this thing that you hold in your hand.
Okay, so as you can see from the diagram, we have this little kickstand that would prop it up like this. Then there's also, here's a display. Over here is where you would turn it on. This cover needs to be on exactly correct, otherwise it won't turn on. It needs to snap just right, otherwise it will not work. Of course, here's the removable keyboard. And then, of course, we have this where you can hold it, and I'll tell you, this little muscle right here is gonna burn. It doesn't burn anymore. Let's see what else. Yes. Also,
Just go ahead and push Google Chrome.
Oh, Google Chrome. See? Also, then there's the pen. So the pen, sometimes it connects, sometimes it doesn't. Then you could also use your stylus. Works just as fine, or your finger. So all those pieces work really well. Was it on that?
Yeah.
It had a little, is it on the back of this guy? Oh,
No.
Mine doesn't. Okay. So there was a
It ripped
little
off.
thing that you could like stick. It would be right there, but then it broke off. So then you just kind of have to
Figure out your own system for
Yeah,
storage
figure out
of the
here,
stylus.
or behind your ear, or something like that.
All right.
Strap. There's a place, it's right at the strap.
Like where?
Right.
Ooh, thank you, Cheryl.
Learning community.
No, I
He's
think
also
we're
a
good.
former linebacker.
Yes. So you'll notice when Letty attached and then detached the keyboard, you'll notice that it gave a message asking about if you want a notification before switching. So there's the tablet mode, and then there's the regular sort of laptop mode. And so I always set, yes, I want it to notify me just so I remember, oh wait, I'm gonna have to use the keyboard differently. I'll have to use the on-screen keyboard. And you'll probably have noticed earlier when I said I was going to turn on her rotation lock, there's a variety of menu items that you see. You can either swipe from the side to get your menu there, or there's a little icon down here that I always think looks like a little speech bubble. And you can click on that to get all of those different settings that you need. Right now, because the keyboard's attached, by default, it thinks, okay, you want to use it like a regular computer. And then if I detach it, it by default will go to tablet mode. And I know the first time a lot of people use it, they don't set the rotation lock, so they're walking through their classroom, and all of a sudden the kids are going like this, and then they realize, oh, my screen's changing every time. So if you haven't used it yet in the classroom, and you plan to use it, and you plan to use it with the keyboard detached, keep that in mind that you want to set that rotation lock when it's in tablet mode, so it doesn't, I see Alyssa, maybe that was happening, so that it doesn't change every time that you move your hand, because obviously as teachers we know we move our hands a lot in our in what we are teaching. So how do we display it? Your tablet should have come with a wide-eye device. It is connected currently to this projector. It needs power, and then it's connected currently with an HDMI cable. When they come out of the box, we're going to assume it's all in here. You'll be given that power cable.
How many of us have that? Because a lot of us don't.
Okay, so that was our question for Sanja, and she said that they're supposed to all be provided. So if that is not happening, we will follow up with that and ask again. But yeah, I know that that obviously became part of the challenge, because if you can't display what's on it, then that makes it somewhat difficult.
The technician, and then the people that got them, who put them in on their projectors. So we had
Right.
to ask.
Your site tech.
We had to ask. Yeah,
Okay.
We didn't just do it. Yeah.
And I think though you're saying that your site never received them. Is that the problem, that you didn't have them at all?
For a year for it.
Okay. And you attended Power One last time? Okay. All right. Yes.
I attended Power One last year, and I just got mine.
Yeah, we just got
Right,
it.
like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I got like 2 days ago.
Okay.
So
So yours is coming, hopefully. Yeah. We knew that we had heard that that was an issue. Our site actually ended up purchasing the tablets prior to Power of One, and so they purchased all the wide-eye devices themselves. And so we didn't have that same issue, but we had heard that that was an issue. And so what we understood was if you received one through Power of One, then you should be getting a wide-eye device. And that it had been clarified with sites that were ordering that they also had to order wide-eye devices with them. Because, you know, with every technology tool, sometimes there's some confusion about what all do you need to order to make that an actual tool that you can use. So when you get yours, there will be a HDMI cable, and yes, your site tech should be the one who sets them up. They name them because they like to have a certain naming. Yeah, so they have to name them, they have to update the firmware, and once that's done, then they can connect them. But depending on your classroom, you'll have either an HDMI connection, and at most of the sites, they're trying to get projectors that all have an HDMI connection, so hopefully that's also happening. I know that we just got a whole bunch that were delivered to our site. If you do not have those new, they do not, and so, yes. So, and then power, and then I'll answer that in just a second though. And then the power, and then if you do not have an HDMI connector or port on your projector, then there is a VGA adapter. And so with the VGA adapter, it plugs into the HDMI port on the wide-eye. You plug a VGA cable into this like you would when you're normally connecting your projector, and connect it to the VGA connector on the projector. This is for audio, so it's what carries it if you're connected through VGA. HDMI will carry the audio just through that connection, but VGA, it has to be a separate connection. This plugs into the adapter, and then would plug into, excuse me, into the audio input, into the audio input corresponding to whichever VGA one you use on your projector. So like if this is plugged into computer 1, your audio would go into computer 1. If it's plugged into computer 2, your audio would go into computer 2. So smartboard question. The tablets do not have the Smart Notebook software or the drivers that allow you to use it with the smartboard. But as you'll see as we present throughout, you can annotate using the tablet. And so it eliminates that issue of, like we display things and then we write on the board, right? So it kind of, you have that same thing taken care of with the tablet. And then also you can have interaction because it's touchscreen, and those are some of the things that we'll be going through with students touching things as well. So with a smart board, how many of you have smart boards in your room? So the idea behind the smart board originally, right, was to make teaching more interactive. So you have kids come up, they're touching the board, they're selecting things, they're dragging objects. And in some classes that happen, and in some classes it's just kind of a big display. And so with the tablet, it doesn't really take away any of those options. It's just a different way of doing it. And so we'll kind of...
But what's on your tablet can't be displayed on.
Oh, it can be displayed. You just can't use the interactive functionality of the smart board. So like if I'm displaying right now, if this were a smart board, if I came up and touched it, it's not going to advance my slides. Because the drivers for the smart board can't be installed on the tablets. Or at least when we got them a year ago, they couldn't.
Is there a device for us? I mean, is it the same device for our smart board projectors?
Yes. Yeah, so do you have the mounted projector? Okay. So then, yeah, it would be, your site tech would have to figure out how are they going to connect that so that it, are they going to take off the shell of it and then put it in and figure out how they're going to connect that. So yes, it is the same device though. You would have to connect via WiDi. There are different adapters you can use. One of the disadvantages of the tablets is that they have very limited outputs, right? So they have a USB-C, which is new and is where things are going, so that's positive, but at the same time it doesn't have a VGA, like I can't connect just a VGA cable to this and then connect it to the projector. It doesn't have an HDMI port, so I can't connect directly with HDMI to my projector. But the design of it is so that it's mobile. So the idea is that you're not putting it here, sitting next to the projector and working anyhow. So that's part of that reason. So those are the things though that it should come with when you get it. And then, yeah, you have to talk to your site techs to figure out how, like what's gonna be the process for making sure that those are installed and that they've been updated. Any other questions on that part? Everyone kind of understand that that's how it connects? Like I'm displaying what's on here via that device. Okay, perfect. So why should we use it? So mobility. So now I'm actually going to start walking around the room like I do normally. So I'm the computer resource teacher. So I teach all the classes on our campus. And the way that I do it at my school is we do a push-in model. So the kids, with the exception of kindergarten, stay in their classrooms when I teach. And I go day after day after day after day after day with a certain grade level for a couple weeks. And then I switch the grade levels. So I'm using it every day, all day. So for me, it's obviously a little different application maybe than a classroom teacher. But what I love about it is I literally can walk over and I can say, can you see what our next thing's going to be? And the student will touch it. And then we'll see student engagement, right? And I can teach from the back of the room, which I prefer when students have computers on their desk because I can see what they're doing. Not just from a management perspective, but also from the perspective of I can see who needs help. Because your quiet kids, they might be 5 steps behind and you don't know it till you actually get up and go to their computer. And so it helps you to say, oh wait, no, you're not on the right spot. Here, let me help you. I can touch their computer, point to where they need to click, right while I'm teaching. And then that way kids don't get kind of so far left behind. It also helps for mobility, even if not from a presentation perspective. Sorry, I forget to breathe. It always tells me when you're stop talking for a minute and breathe. But from a presentation perspective to also whatever we're doing. So like in first grade, I had students recording their voices the other day in Seesaw, and they had to read from their paragraphs that they'd done. Now for them to have one tab where they're recording, to go back to their paragraph and have to read and go back, that's difficult. But I could leave my computer here, bring up their paragraph that I had in classroom. I leave it there. I go over and I'm helping these students here, and they're recording their voice. Because I can leave my computer there with those students. They can read what's on that screen, and then I can come back and continue my whole group instruction.
So you're saying there's a built-in microphone on.
Well, that's true on this too, yes. They were recording on their Chromebooks, but this also has a built-in microphone. So for a lot of a lot of applications and websites now do allow students to record their voices with the idea that that's helping with their fluency. It helps them to hear themselves read. It helps them to hear themselves speak. And so that is one benefit, that I can just I can call a kid up and they can record their voice on whatever we're working on. Yes?
You said Seesaw. Is that an app?
It is.
And is that available on Chromebook, or do they use some other method for?
They can do it on the Chromebooks. And Seesaw is an ePortfolio app. And at the very end, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the applications that we have liked the best using the tablet. And then throughout the year, we plan to do a variety of follow-up workshops that are not focused necessarily on the tablet itself, but using the tablet with another teaching tool, another technological teaching tool. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. Yes?
Do all Chromebooks allow voice recording?
All Chromebooks should allow voice recording. Okay. For most of them, you're going to the kids are going to have to click allow, because it would, by default, since it's set up with a student profile, it's going to ask them, right? Do you really want to allow this or block it? Okay. So you just have to teach kids allow. And even first graders, you know, we just say allow starts with A, allow starts with A, and then when it pops up, they know to click on the one that starts with A, and they're good to go. All right, and then again, students can touch the screen too. And so that is a benefit, and you can touch the screen, because most of us have touch screen devices in our lives that we use on a regular basis. And so we like to be able to use those touchscreen devices, and it's nice to be able to use them professionally as well. Then you can annotate. So we've got our friends here are going to come up. Florian, I think you're first. Let me get your menu up here. Not seeing your full menu. There's your full menu. Okay. So an issue like that, right? I wasn't seeing what I wanted on the bottom. So I thought, oh, I'm going to go back to what I started with, which was the keyboard attached. Now I'm seeing what I want. And that is this little picture that to me looks like a pen with a string. You'll see it on your desktop computers now too, because I think most people have been updated to Windows 10. And it's just it's an annotation tool that's built into Windows 10. However, it doesn't work really on a desktop. But Letty's going to come on up and show us how she would use it when she's teaching.
Florian. Florian.
Sorry, I went back. And would you like the stylus? Is that your plan?
Well, I'm going to try.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna
Oh,
get
you
it.
got,
Oh, I got
yes, because Cheryl stored it for us so beautifully.
Right. Okay, so here's an example of the Your Turn. Oh, whoops, I don't want that one. See, look, I'm using the touch screen. Of the Your Turn book in first grade.
Did somebody make that?
No, that's the worksheet. That's the front.
That's the Your Turn Wonders.
Got you.
Okay.
I haven't seen it in this form.
So I would find it right here, and then I would click this guy. I'd touch that guy, and then touch Screen Sketch.
Yeah, what guy? What guy?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. So this little, what she was just talking about, that little pen with a thingy, was, I don't know, a string around it. So you tap. Well, here, I'll show you.
It's like the Microsoft Ink suite, I think is what they call
If
it
you
now.
hover over it, you can see the title, and people can see it.
Right.
yeah.
So I touched it, and that came
Windows
up.
Ink Workspace.
Sorry, I'm too fast. And then I hit Screen Sketch. So then now I have the capability of writing on this. And so let's see, it's going to connect. See now my pen.
And then what is she doing? Can you go back and do that
Yes.
one more time?
Yes.
So where's the screen sketch?
Oh, I'm sorry. So that guy
Touch that.
first.
And then what?
Screen Sketch. Yes.
I don't know.
And like right now, my pen is not connecting.
It might
You want
be
to
that
show the
we
menu
have
at the
to
top
Most of us
there?
don't have the
What?
pen.
Oh. So up at the top is the menu, and okay, so I'll do that. So you can pick your color. You could pick this. I think it's a little bit thicker. Here's a highlighter. And you can pick how thick you want it. And then there's the eraser. Erase all the ink. I don't know what this one does. Oh, it's a ruler. I don't use it, so I don't know. This, see the if you do that, then I could, oh, come on. I can write with my finger. But if you take that off, then you have to use a stylus. But like right now my stylus.
It's the one next to the ruler.
Right. Here. But my, oh, now it is, see? Oh, sometimes it connects and sometimes it
At the
doesn't.
very top, there's a little hand.
Okay.
And that's what.
It's like a finger up?
And so for those people who don't have a pen, you can either use your finger or any stylus. And I think we'll show those in a little bit. But at Letty, we had just, like the cheap dollar styluses that they give out at different events. I should use the word cheap. But, they're like basic. You can get them even at the dollar store. And you can use those instead.
So, like I said, so my pen worked and then it didn't work, and then you just have to come up with another plan. So, for example, I could have this up. I could make sure that all the kids have this open, right? And look around and maybe help somebody out. And then you can, so we're going to work, it says, what is the topic of the writing, right? It wants us to add sensory detail. So it says the bell rings and we go to lunch. I sit and eat my sandwich first. So right there, I could ask, well, what kind of sandwich was it? And the kids could tell me, or they could get ideas, and I could actually, I don't know if I can do this. Say, peanut butter. Say it's peanut butter, I'm sorry. And then we can add it like that and just be able to maybe highlight something. Maybe it asked us that it wanted us to highlight, I don't know, the sensory word or the detail, and you could actually highlight it like that. And the kids can see that and they can copy, they could copy what you're doing, and then you can look around and say, oh, okay, right here, do it right here, that kind of thing. Another thing I do with it also is I do it with math as well, where I can walk around the room and help kids. The kids could actually do something on the tablet themselves, right? Sometimes we have matching in first grade, like they have the word and the picture, and the kids can do it with their finger. They don't have to worry about using the pen or the stylus.
And so that's where that sort of interactivity of the smartboard becomes more in your court, right? You have the control over that, which you would anyhow, because you're going to call students up. But it's still those same features where you can place that down on someone's desk and then they can do the highlighting, or they can write out the problem, or they can do the matching or dragging of the objects. So even though you can't use the smartboard software or the drivers with that, you can still use that as the interactive device. And since it's still displayed.
If we don't have all this, will these be updated?
If you don't have, and by all this, which part do you mean, like the ink?
Icon doesn't
Okay, so if you don't, yes, it should be updated to Windows 10. And so that's part of the, been part of the issue, I guess, with the sort of deployment of these devices, right? That they were given, and that was it. It was like, here's a device. And as we know, that's never the most effective. So I think that they're kind of looking back and saying, okay, now what steps do we need to make sure we go through so everybody has access to all of the right tools. So yes, so talk to you would want to put in a heat ticket and say that you need your device updated to Windows 10, that you're not seeing the annotation tool, and your tech should know what that means. If you don't have a pen, and it looks like you have a different device, so that might have been part of the issue. But if you don't have a pen and you were supposed to get one with your device, then you will want to follow up with your admin and see if they can follow up with Sanja and see so that everybody has it. Because when we first got the devices, I remember our principal was presenting and he's like, oh, look at these cool devices we got. And then he was going to write, and he couldn't write because there was no built-in annotation tool. But when you upgrade it to Windows 10, and we used like another tool in between, but it's this one's, it's takes less time to access it and all of that. So that's helpful. All right. So that's one example with Wonders, right, that we would use. We'd pull up the Your Turn book, and then as Letty showed, you could use it the way that you're normally instructing, asking kids to highlight, asking kids to circle, underlining things, helping them emphasize parts of the instruction. Ron's going to show you an example with math.
Hey, Ron.
All right. So
Click to the tabs.
yep. And then tab, and then your math will come up, and you can click on the link. There it is.
Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome, everybody. I am the most low-tech person probably on my site, but as I've been trying to get out of my comfort zone and learn more about how to utilize this technology, it's been brand new tools, I've become a little bit more and more interested in using it. So it's just like anything, the more you try, the more you get excited about learning. So try to have that open mindset, and I've tried to keep that on a daily basis. This, again, to me it looks like an 8 note because of my music background. But down there, it's right next to the little key sign. That's the easiest way to find it. There's a little keyboard sign. I have done Sketchpad a little bit. Not a lot to it, mostly coloring, haven't really used sticky notes at all. But the screen sketch, it's been easy for me to use right away. Again, I'm more low tech, so I haven't spent an enormous amount of time looking through all of the Wonders materials. Okay, I do some, but I haven't looked at all those screens and screens and screens on Wonders. So what we were talking about, I actually just started doing this because we were talking about it while we were discussing what we were going to present. So I'm thinking, well, just like at Elmo, what if you could get student work and put it up there and then walk around and have students point out areas where they might have made a mistake. And the power behind that has already been showing well worth the amount of time just to take a picture of student work. And then you can see how this can also apply to all of their subjects. Language arts, science, social studies, whatever it may be.
Yeah, he'll show you.
So this is what I've been doing lately. I've been working on multiple methods in multiplication. And so this particular example is from a student who does not always come to school enthused or ready to learn or with the best, most positive attitude. And I intentionally chose examples, we're only using one today because of time, but I intentionally chose examples of students in that, in that situation, because that's what this whole seminar is all about. You can see he did 3 different examples of a math problem, multiplication problem. He also did label the title of each of those. So just a quick background, this has already been done independently. I've done direct teaching, they've done small groups. Small group managers have come up and actually displayed it on the Elmo and explained how to do it. They did it again in small groups the next day. This was time for everyone to show what they have now independently. Okay, so there was some teaching in the background. But this is what he put out. All right, so what to do with this tablet here, what I have been doing. Can't deal with that color, sorry.
Can I ask how you got that paper on there to begin with?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Spoilers.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for asking though, because that makes this part well worth it. Because we were wondering how many people are in this. All right, come on. So, okay, so is my little finger. Can you see it up there? Can you see the ruler? Can you see the little finger swipey thing? Is there blue under there?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I should just use my finger. Okay.
Sometimes for selecting things, the finger works better
There we
than
go.
The stylus.
It's not giving me orange. There we go. Wasn't giving up. Okay, so here's an example. I don't know if it's difficult for you, some of you to see. Do you see any mistakes in the top example of our area model? A little bit different. Okay, because I'm going to show you. He did 3 times 600 right here. 3 times 600. Anyone see it up front? It says 1800. 3 times 600, 1800. Okay? Then he has 3 times 90 is 27. Raise your hand if you've ever seen that common mistake. Right? Okay, so place value issues, right? So now we're at 3 times 90 equals 27. So what I would be able to do is I'd be able to walk over to him or to any student and they can press highlighter. Choose a highlighter color. I'm not sure how nice it's going to look. And it can highlight where the mistake is. And then all students talk about it real quick. Where's the mistake? What was the mistake? Why? Quick explanation. Move on to the next one. Okay. Something else I've done. So finding mistakes, discussing mistakes, fixing them by use of just the screenshot. Another idea that was brought up just recently by one of my colleagues is she does a lot with, and I used to do this in math, was use different colors for the different steps. You know, like here's the first step in math, adding the ones place, those are going to be red. Second step, those are going to be green, right? So you can do the same thing here. Like here's his, down below there is his distributed property. So I did a quick green right there. There's his 3 times 600. Did you get 1800 again?
Yes.
3 times 600, 1800 looks good. Now you can choose a different color. And you can do the next step. 3 times 90. You see a common error? Okay, but by the time we do this step, okay, this step here, I guarantee more people say, that's 270 instead of 27. Okay? So you can color code the steps. And that kind of helps with the engagement. And again, you can always hand this over to someone. You want to try and just click that little pen right there.
This one?
And choose what color you want.
Brown.
All right. And then if you could just kind of drag it over that third step that where he multiplied times the ones place. That's okay. But that's part of the learning process, right? And then you can figure out, maybe I will use brown next time.
All right.
Or maybe I'll make it a little thicker.
Okay.
Okay? And there you go. So then you can see how quick the student engagement can be. And something about the smartboard I've noticed since using this more is there's less time taken for students to walk back and forth to the screen. You just hand it to them and go. Boom. Right.
Question, are you able to, like the iPhone, able to expand that? and
You,
make that
yes,
bigger?
you are. I haven't done much of it. But would I just tap the screen?
Nope,
Or
you're
just,
gonna zoom in and out with your fingers.
you have to use both finger?
So you probably have to have the screen sketch.
Click, yeah.
That's all learning
X out.
skill.
X out.
Well, let's see, I don't usually do it in the screen sketch. So I'm gonna deselect that I want a stylus. So let me take off screen sketch. So then I could zoom in and out this way. Which, you know, obviously is great for lots of things with kids. I use it a lot when the
Like presentations, for example.
yes.
So you can still scroll up and down, right?
You can still scroll up and down, just like you would on any touch screen. One thing about the screen sketch, though, is you want to be on the part that you plan to sketch on. Because that is one disadvantage, is that once you take that screen sketch, you're in that sketch, right? You're in that, it takes a screenshot of what you have at that moment. Which hasn't been a problem for me, but I just know that ahead of time. So then, as I'm doing the instruction, you know, I'm just thinking of that. Okay, now I need
So
to
if
go
I
to that
wrote, if I
part.
wrote on that bottom part where the distributed property is, if I try to scroll up to the top,
Right.
my markings would stay. Or would my markings
No,
go?
so now I'd have to close it to be able to get back to that, because it basically just took a picture for me
Oh.
and opens it up as a picture. And so now I can only work within what I have there. So I do my lines, and then and then I have to close it, and then I'm back to all the other tabs that I had open. Yes. Yes. He hasn't shown you yet. That's the next thing. We're going to see this is a challenge because I'm making him use someone else's computer. He prepped his, and now
Yes.
asking him to use someone else's. So to find everything on it.
What I have done before is I had no tabs at the top because I need to start that way, usually, okay? But I'm going to leave the tabs up here. Should be okay?
Yeah,
To go to
we're fine.
Windows. So I'm going to go to my Windows array in the lower left-hand corner.
And then you get all your apps that are installed on your computer
People know right
are
now.
displayed here. So you just scroll down within that
Scroll,
menu.
scroll, scroll. Everyone see camera?
Yeah. Do you want to show them what you did on yours?
So what I did was, let me go. And there you go. There's your camera.
Wait, what did you hit? Did you go back?
I would click no on the precise location.
Oh, thank you, miss.
You don't. We don't want any geotagging.
Did everyone see it okay? Should we go back? Okay, Windows array. And then you just scroll for all your, now once
scroll bar's over in here. You
So
can't see it
this
very well
scroll,
with the
you
color.
can't see the scroll bar on my tablet. There's a scroll. I just press the camera. See the camera? And there it is.
And so,
And see in the upper right hand corner, there's your camera icon button where you take a picture.
and you can pin that down here. So if you point to that, if you had the keyboard attached, you could right click, and then it'll give them options to pin it. And so then that way you'd always have that app right here on your taskbar, and you can just click on it and open it up. So you wouldn't have to go through that the whole time. I will show you how to do that. Josie.
Oh, I know, with the keyboard.
With
That's
the
what I did.
keyboard,
That's
yeah.
what happened. Thank you. So, where's my good guy? Where's he at? There it is. All right. So what I did was I was just playing with it. I did my 2-finger tap or right click, some people call it, and see where it says pin to start. I clicked pin to start, and now it's going to be here all the time.
And then right click again and just go to more and see if it has to go
Right click again. I've just been told.
and then just have pin to task.
Pin to taskbar.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
And now it's at the
Now it's at
bottom.
the bottom.
So it's quick. And for those of you doing like donors choose and they want pictures and things like that, here's your camera right away. This also has video. So short videos to send. Okay. All right.
Yeah, of course.
Following this workshop, is there ever a time in the district where you can hold another workshop for us to bring our tablets?
Yes. So our plan is that we're going to have maybe 4 or 5 throughout the rest of the year, and then choose a tool to focus on. Again, like a teaching tool to focus on. Have everyone bring their tablets, because as we know, if you're not doing that, especially in an environment where there aren't kids, then it's harder when there are kids, because you think, oh, your anxiety raises when things aren't going exactly how you want. But yes, that's the plan. And we'll, I have a document open here. We're gonna have everyone, actually I might just start passing it around my computer. If you could just put your name, your site, and your email address, and then we'll email out at the end all the resources that we'll email out this presentation. We'll email out some screenshots on how to get to Screen Sketch. We'll email out, Ron did a whole presentation on how to access the camera. We'll email all of that out. So I'm going to pass this around and have people start filling that out. And then Carlson is a, or Chris.
You take this one? Okay, thank you.
We're very informal.
Yeah.
I feel like you're another. All right. Oops.
Voice recording. Erica, the voice recording, is that
So
coming?
it'd be in whatever tool you're using.
Okay.
So if you're using a tool that that allows you to record your voice, like you're not going to just record your voice to record your voice, I suppose, right? But like in Seesaw, you click on the microphone, and then in whatever it is that you're using that would ask the kids to record, or ask you to record.
All right, so we're going to talk about one more possible application, and something that I think is helpful and kind of encouraging for us all to understand as we're integrating the new technology into whatever we're doing. It's normal for us to kind of start with, how can I take something I'm already doing in the classroom and just extend it a little bit to make this this technology a part of that. So one thing I'm going to show is close reading. So if anyone doing close reading with their students, rereading text for different purposes. So just to show an example of how you might do that in the classroom using the tablet. So I'm going to go back to our presentation here. And there it is, close reading and text evidence. And since Ron brought up another tool, the tool of the camera, I'm going to share another tool you may or may not be familiar with. It's called a snipping tool. Have you heard of that, the snipping tool? All right, so one way I could get material for a close read is I could go through the portal. I can open up Wonders. We're all familiar with this. I could open up to my unit, my week. I'm going to do these steps quickly because I think we do this many times every day, probably, at least a few. Not at all. It matters that it's taking a while. That's what it matters. Well, let's just assume this is what I wanted. We'll just kind of stay here. The snipping tool is found the same way. It's not responding. Thanks. Quickly, so let's just say I wanted to capture this for some purpose. Just go to the windows like Ron did before, and then down on these apps, and it's alphabetical, it's called the Snipping Tool. So I'm going to scroll down. Oh, you already have it. Okay. There it is. It looks like a pair of scissors right here. Right there. And that's going to open up, and if I want to grab this, I'm going to click New. I'm up in the top left-hand corner here. And then you can drag a shape or a rectangle. I'll grab this bit right here. And now I have that as a picture. And I can copy that, I can put it into a Word document, or I save it as a PDF, save it as an image, and then I can write on top of it. So you can grab anything that the screen shows, you can grab it for your use later. So I did that with a close reading passage, and I'll use my fingers to pinch and make this larger, make you read it. I'm not gonna make you read the whole thing, but a certain part. We'll pretend in a close read, we've read the whole text to get the gist the first time, pretend we all read this and got the gist.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when I used to use this for any of these forms or whatever, I didn't take a picture, I just tried to write on the PDF. Is that what we were doing wrong? We needed to do this snap thing that you're doing?
Oh no, you should be able to do it either way. If you go into,
Using the ink.
yeah, if you're using the ink, so if I'm down here,
I had that installed. I mean,
Okay. Oh, this is mine.
Yes,
I know it's installed on mine.
When we had it last year, it wasn't installed, you know, because they just
Right.
gave it to you and
Yeah.
it was like the black and white.
So on some of the Wonders materials, they have interactive versions, and then they have the original format. The original format is always a PDF.
Right.
The interactive versions, it appears that if you click on that, you should automatically be able to write. But no, we still had to either do the screen sketch or take a
And how
picture.
did you figure that out? Did someone tell you? Or?
Didn't work, so we tried to figure out what to do. No, yeah, I mean, it was like, oh, this isn't working. Why isn't this working? And then, asking other people, why is this functionality not here? Me asking people at Tech Services, and then them figuring out, oh no, if we update to this version of Windows, we'll have that built-in annotation tool. And
Okay, so
Yes.
we're not updated. As soon as we get updated, we'll have
yes, and that should not take long.
Okay.
As soon as your site tech can do that, they should be able to just take your computer for a day, and then, yeah. And do you mean a full page screenshot? So there's a couple
Go
ways.
ahead.
Do you want to?
well, I was gonna, I want you to, a way through it like we showed that you're gonna use the ink tools, or another way. There's,
Yeah. So I guess for what are you picturing you doing completely, and then we'll figure out which tool is the better.
Well, I'm thinking, can you keep several windows open, and then you can have a screenshot, and you can do,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So probably the camera, if you want to have multiple, if you want to have pictures of certain things or using the snipping tool, the problem is so you use the snipping tool, it's going to open that image, right? And then you have to do something with that. You could write on it right then, but if you want to save it, you'd have to save that image. It's not going to open it as another tab. But you could, if you were taking pictures of student work, for example, you could have multiple pictures. And then that shows up when you're going to the camera. I want to touch it like a smartboard. When you go to the camera, there's the gallery, and then you could have all those images open.
It can
So-
actually slide them from one picture to the next.
Yeah.
but if you're doing it this way too, if I took this picture here and I wanted to say, well, drawing on it, if I wanted to make another one, I could save this one, and then I have that separate file, grab something else, and open up those two files simultaneously, and I can have them up at the same time. But they have to be separate files, because this only wants to work with one thing at a time.
Do you have to save it, or can you just shrink it down and move it or whatever?
If you want to take another one and show more than one at a time, you need to save it, I think, and reopen it.
Well, I don't know. Click on new. Let's find out.
Okay.
Let's see if it clears it.
Yep, it's gone.
Yeah. So then you have to save it.
Where does it save it to?
You can decide. So let's say let's grab this, and did that kind of quickly. Huh? It's going to ask me if I want to save. Yeah, I want to save it. So this is defaulting into this PC pictures, but you can customize the pathway up here wherever you want to put it. Just like you're downloading a file from the internet or something
You
like
can
that.
make a folder on your desktop and just save it to that, so you have instant access to it.
Yeah.
It's easy
That's a
to
good
think while
idea.
you're teaching.
Yeah.
Great. So I use that snipping tool to create this slide, but you could just as well have Connect Ed open and have your interactive close reading companion up. We'll just look at one section here. Using my fingers to pinch and make this larger, I'm not yet using the ink tools that I'm going to use in a moment, so I'm able to change the size. I'm just going to ask if you could, that's pretty clear as I make it larger. I'm going to ask you just to read that 4th paragraph, and here's my question, and I'm going to have you do a partner talk too. So the question is, after reading this paragraph, how does the author let you know what Chinese New Year is like? Like what is it, what it looks like, what it feels like and sounds like? How do they help you to experience what it's like? And just show me a thumbs up when you have some evidence of that. All right, really quickly, just in the interest of time, I'm not going to have you get A, B partners or anything like that. Just turn to someone and tell them some evidence you saw, how the author lets you know that. I'm just going to pick someone and do a couple. People show some evidence to help answer the question. How does the author let us know what this experience is like? And so I'm going to come over here. You just click on the ink right there. So she's clicking to enable the ink. That's it right there. And then she's going to go to Screen Sketch on the right. Now you'll see that the colors, the highlighters are all active now. And if you want to click on highlighter, it's the 3rd one. And then how about you, Tyler? I'll let you talk.
Okay. Oh, am I on?
You're on.
Do I talk while I?
Sure. You can say, my partner and I found, or something like that.
My very brilliant partner and I found a lot of vivid adjectives to describe the event, like red, yellow, green. They made it very visual by words like March by Rose. They used onomatopoeias to describe sound.
Got an accelerated student here.
Yes. In 2 minutes, my 3rd grade buddy taught a 2nd grade buddy all these wonderful skills.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Can we give her a round of applause, please? Yeah.
I have a quick question for you. So have you used the tablet before?
Yes, just now.
But before that, had you highlighted on the tablet?
No, I've only used it to do documents.
Okay,
and I
perfect.
didn't know anything else about it, so this is really good.
Okay, so after doing that, do you feel like if you did that more, you could also do that while you're
So he
teaching?
chose me because now that's probably the only thing I could go home and do. But I'm going to play around with it.
That's how we all learn, and then from each other. Like, I didn't know when Chris opened the snipping tool, I noticed you could write without opening Screen Sketch. So he could do that snipping tool, make it full screen, and then he was able to write. I was like, oh, maybe I'll use that now. So, I mean, that's obviously how we're all learning about them.
Great. It just kind of reminds me of something with, as we kind of begin this journey, you know, some of the things we learn today are going to be Monday kind of things, and other things are going to be someday kind of things. So, you know, and that's okay that we start kind of where we are and look for ways and learn with each other how we can best utilize these.
So Chris, if you were to now save this, when you brought it back up, all of your highlights would be there. Would you then be able to manipulate the highlights and like get rid of them once you brought it back up, or now that it's saved forever?
I haven't tried that. Let's try it. So up in the top right hand corner, there's a disk, which we don't use anymore, but means save. We'll click that. Let's save it to pictures. Okay, sketch is fine. All right, I'm going to close out of that. Let's see if you can find it. Pictures, sketch. I'll open it back up. Now it looks like, just the way it looks, I would say we probably can't erase from it because it kind of just, it's like another screen capture. But
See what your options
we can
are
try.
on the top
Yeah, let's
right
see.
there where that pencil, see if there's an option that says like edit and see it.
Open with, copy, print. Looks more like picture effects.
Screen Sketch, is that an option? So the answer is no for now.
No
We'll
for
see
now,
if that-
yeah.
So you're thinking, you know, like it's something you want to come back to later in the lesson, and
Well, I was
then
thinking, like she said, if you had multiple pictures up and you wanted to compare or change compared to the others, that kind of thing, that's the best case.
okay. So that could be something we could look at, like for a following workshop, like. You know, if people come prepared with, I would want to do these certain things, that's something we could look at. What would be the easiest way to do that?
Great. And there's some other things you can do kind of on the spot. Ron, you want to talk about how we're going to just look things up?
Looking things up.
Yeah, capitalizing on student interest and what they're wondering.
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna have to close some of these up.
Just don't close the presentation.
Hold on. Hold on.
Well, I was closing, can I ask you a quick question? You said you couldn't connect it. I had mine connected, and then when I turned it back on to try to connect again, I couldn't.
Yeah.
So just unplug, and you don't have to do anything else. It should automatically connect when I'm up there, right?
I'll walk you through the end. After he does all this, I'll walk you through that whole process and show you exactly what I do because I face it all the time in different rooms or when you're in the middle of teaching and then it disconnects. And so I'll kind of tell you what my process is and then you'll figure out what works in your room.
So I usually use the keyboard more than that. I'm trying to do this a little bit more. Just something I noticed from holding the tablet. Sometimes it starts just becoming a little cumbersome. So what I do is I have one of these little plastic carts that you could buy, like $20, $30 carts that sit under your bed when you're in bed. I just have one of those in the back of my room. So then that way I could stand it up. I can just prop up the tablet with the keys. Keyboard there, and it's in the back of the room. I can move it around on that cart because it has wheels, and that way I'm not holding it the whole time because I tend to use both my hands all the time. So that's just a little note on that. It just helps alleviate some of that sharing. So what I just discovered though, spot there, is there's your keyboard, right? So it's right down, right where we had there's our screen sketch, right? So let's get that. The keyboard icon is right next to the screen sketch.
And when you're in tablet mode, it automatically knows you want that. So if you click anywhere, you'd be able to put text. If you click there, it'll bring up the on-screen keyboard.
Sorry about that. I'm trying to get Chinese New Year. So you're reading that story, and maybe some students want to see some ideas of some Chinese dragons. And so you just pull that up real quick. It's on a tab. And this one. Okay, and then you have a quick image. And so this is what I use this for a lot also. Just while you're teaching, something comes up in your reading, you can pull up a quick image or even a quick meeting on something.
And you can do that from the back of the room, sitting next to certain students that we won't name right now. But you know, instead of having to walk all the way to your desktop.
You can hand it to that student that you know is a little more advanced, and they're not going to have to ask you to spell everything, right? Because they're so concerned about the spelling, and they just said, look this up first real quick. They're looking it up while you're still teaching them. And boom, there it is, side by side. Okay.
Yeah, Google is known for coming up with things that might not be appropriate. That's what I was just thinking.
Correct.
But
So
there's Hooligans, there's websites meant for kids to look stuff up.
Yeah, and usually, in my experience, if it's something that relates to school, usually the first few images at least are, are decent. And it's important for our kids to learn too, though. They're going to see things on the internet that are not appropriate, and they have to have a plan for what are they going to do at that point, and so that has to be part of kind of our digital citizenship that we're all teaching too, that, all right, if we're going to look something that comes up that's inappropriate, this is how we handle that situation. So
that's another strategy
yeah.
I use. If I'm
Yeah.
having someone look up
Or
something,
I stand in front of it until I see what's there. Yeah, so maybe don't search for images unless you know ahead of time that is what you're going to want to put in.
Maybe I should have asked this in the beginning, but I know you need the device to connect. But does it automatically just get you going? Or
No.
Can you have to use the...
I'll show you how to do that then, because then I'll show you, I'll disconnect on purpose once we're done with the presentation, and then show you how to connect and what happens if it doesn't work. All right, and then just as I mentioned earlier, I can leave my computer right next to a student too, or sometimes kids just need, sure it's displayed, sure you're talking about it, but you might have a small group that needs to look at what you're seeing, that needs that more up close. If you're working with kindergarten and you want them to be writing something in a certain way, or you want, then you can leave that where they can see it right there. They don't have to be looking at the display, because some kids, that's a long ways to look. From there to there, there's a lot of distractions in between. So it is nice to be able to provide them too with that individual model and just put it down for them. All right. So what issues? So this comes back to all those things we were talking about. So sometimes certain websites don't load correctly. That can happen on the tablet, that can happen on our desktop computer, that can happen on the Chromebook, that can happen anywhere. Wonders is notorious for that, where certain elements load beautifully one day and other elements don't load beautifully the next day. So if you're having issues with the tablet with them not loading certain websites correctly, you might need a plugin that needs to be installed, or you might need something else installed. So definitely put in a heat ticket. And don't wait 6 months and say, oh, I just never used it. Just put in a heat ticket, and then your tech should be able to come and see what it is that site requires and why it's not opening for you. Or use a different browser. I use that all the time. So I'm a Google Chrome type of person, and I use Chrome by default for everything. But occasionally something isn't loading right, so I go back to Internet Explorer, and it loads fine in Internet Explorer. Sometimes it's not loading correctly in Internet Explorer. I happened to walk into a room the other morning, and that was happening for a teacher with Wonders. And she said, it won't load, I don't know what to do. I said, have you tried Chrome? She opened Chrome, and it loaded fine. So that's just kind of a general tech advice. Like if something's not loading correctly in one browser, try another one. So Wi-Fi, Letty had lots of Wi-Fi issues last year, yes. And then Wi-Fi issues. So again, any tool is going to be imperfect, and part of the imperfection of this tool is this tool. So the Action Tech devices, the Wi-Fi, they'll disconnect sometimes when you're teaching, and all of a sudden it says ready to connect. So like I said before, I use it every day, all day long, and I still would say, even with the number of times that I have to reconnect in some classrooms, it's still worth it to me. Like I still find the ability to move around the room, the ability to let kids see it more easily, the ability to zoom in and out, to annotate on it, I still find it a better tool than using the desktop computer. But you will run into issues with it. So I will show you, like I said, how to disconnect and how to reconnect. And put in a heat ticket if it's continually happening, because the firmware on the Wi-Fi might need to be updated, which I think somebody up here had mentioned updating before. All right, pen issues. As you saw, sometimes it's not working particularly well. But like they already showed, within that menu, you can always select just to do any input. And when you click that hand, it's saying any input that I use to touch the screen is what I want to annotate. Battery life. The keyboard drains the battery. So if you always have the keyboard attached, you're not shutting it down, you're going to notice, wait, I only used it once and now it's already dead. So detach the keyboard or shut it down, and that'll solve that problem. If you got one last year and you've never used it before, when you try to power it up, it's going to tell you that it needs a new operating system. It'll give you an error. And that happens with these, that if you leave them off for too long, like all of summer, or it drains the battery completely and then it's left off for too long, you'll have to ask your site tech to reinstall.
I was told when I got mine to keep it plugged in at all times. Do you agree with that statement?
Not at all.
Unplug it?
I don't think it's ever a good idea to keep a computer logged in or plugged in all the time. But especially, if you're walking around.
We were told the same thing.
Yeah, we told it.
Well, that's probably why they're saying that, is that they have that issue if you let the battery drain all the way and then wait too long. But I've had it, my battery is drained. Like I haven't used it for like 2 weeks or something during a break, and then maybe I'll power it on, or even 3 or 4 weeks sometimes. But no, I charge it at night, again, because I use it all day long. But you could probably just charge it every couple days if you're using it part of the day. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it probably is okay for the battery, but yeah, no, I would just charge it at night before you plan to bring it the next day. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about that and shut it down. Okay, so what we were wondering is if you guys could tell us ways that you thought maybe you could use it as a better tool in your instruction, something that you currently do that you could see you using it as a tool you don't mind me using your desk here, I just always stick it on the kids. And is there any place you could see yourself using the tablet now in their classroom? Yeah.
Well, I teach third grade and we're going into regrouping right now, so putting problems up on the tablet that
Okay.
the kids can work.
All
And then,
right.
like you said, changing the ink or changing the highlighter color
Okay.
for that regrouping.
Okay. So changing ink or color for regrouping. Try that with my own daughter today. Yeah.
I like the functionality of it being able, rather than having them come up to the smartboard to touch
Mhm.
something, being able to bring it to them.
Okay.
Because some kids who are not willing to get in front of the class, if they
Right.
have the keyboard in front of them, they're more comfortable interacting with it, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
How long will it stay open? Like I do Class Dojo and I do it on my old iPad, which is about to die. Which I leave open so the kids can come up and give points. How long before it locks and you have to put your password in? Do you?
So you can always you can set it in your computer, and this is true of any computer, in the control panel. Where's power option?
I'm hoping you can set it for like hours.
You can set it to never.
Hours open.
Power option. So you can choose when your computer sleeps, and you can set it to never. So you can set it to never turn off the display and never, so that you have complete control over it. And that's just in the control panel and power.
And you can have a tech person come and you can do your fingerprint, so if it comes off, you don't have to read. So if it turns down.
I want the kids to be able to. I don't want to have to go and open it each time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, cause I was having that problem.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he did it so that I just put
Right.
my finger over.
Yeah, over the little dot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is faster, definitely.
So you don't have to type in there.
Our VP's breaking our. Okay. Oh yeah.
So that way during the day, no matter whatever, because we were having issues, whenever it went off, as long as I logged in at the beginning of the day, I just put my fingerprint on. I don't have to
do
enter
that.
everything.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
All right, thanks for the suggestion. Okay. Anything else? Anywhere else you see yourself using it in the classroom? Ron.
Just pulling from something Carlton showed today with the highlighting of the words in text, maybe different highlight colors for the different parts of speech for sentence development.
And this is when you know you're with adults, not children, because they haven't pointed out yet that the word's spelled incorrectly.
Or like I'll have them highlight the color based on like number 1 is going to be red, find the answer in red, and you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But sentence lifting would be good.
Mhm.
Alright. I'm going to use the snipping tool more, especially if we find out really you can annotate on it directly.
It was already mentioned over to sentence lifting with the camera also.
Oh, that's a good idea. Alright.
I use mine for brain breaks. I pull up brain breaks for in between really long lessons sometimes and different things, but to be able to do it, not have to go back to my desk and back and forth and back, I can be anywhere.
Right. Perfect. Anything else?
I had an idea. I was thinking, especially if schools are working with visible learning or anything, just coupled with the camera idea, you might take pictures of student work that's at different places along the learning progression. Like this student has got all the points, and this person has this, but the next step is this, so the kids can actually see, using their work or examples you're storing, where they need to go next to meet the standard.
That's funny, Chris, because I was thinking of displaying a rubric of maybe writing, because I teach kindergarten, and having an example of maybe what this one was.
Yeah.
Different pieces of food.
Yeah.
I have a question about the videotaping of the kids for the kids.
Uh-huh.
Is that fine? Because I'm thinking how, they love to see themselves on camera. So let's say we're doing a STEM activity, they would love to see back either pictures or even maybe short videos, but it's of them for them. So.
Yeah, of them for them is fine. You just can't put it online. And you have to just check your opt-out. Make sure you don't have any kids that have signed opt-out forms that don't want to be, their parents don't want image or video taken of them. But yeah, just before you post anything, you would need to have permission slips. Does that sound right, Josie? Does that sound like,
Video of
okay.
kids showing them learning in different ways.
Okay. But yeah, I think that's great. No, I think that's just like in our last, thing he was talking about watching your game tape as a teacher, right? I mean, that's perfect for kids. Like how did that for them to see that? It's just the same thing like with their voice. When they hear themselves reading and then they, they're, oh, okay, that's what I sound like, or, so, but I think video is a great option. Yes. All right. Any other ideas? We filled the page. Okay, so as we mentioned, how do you learn more? So we will have some future workshops, and if everyone put their information in there, that's how we'll get a hold of you. We'll send out, like I said, the resources that we have. So we'll do the screenshots for how to get to Screen Sketch. We can also do screenshots of how to get to the Snipping Tool, and then for the camera as well. Was there anything else that people would think they would need, like visual directions?
I need action tech, how to reconnect it.
Oh, I didn't do that yet, and I promised you, and thank you. Okay, so
You know more.
right now it's
I'll go
connected, but it would not be connected automatically. I would see a screen, and if I have the blue one that says EGUSD, the firmware has been updated. If I see an old one that's not that blue one with EGUSD, then it's not been updated. So that's one thing I can know. And so to get there, I have my little conversation bubble, or again, swiping from the side. And if I click connect, it's going to offer me all the wide-eye devices that are available to me. Now, you'll usually see, if you have rooms next to each other, you'll usually see wide-eye devices from both sides as well. So in some sites, they've named them by the classroom, but if they don't do that, just make sure you know what the name of yours is. And then I'm going to disconnect right now. So since I'm already connected, I'm going to disconnect.
That shows up there by default if you have.
And so this is what you would see.
Operating system.
Now, this is what I have learned about wide-eye devices when you immediately disconnect. It usually won't reconnect me right away. So we'll find out. We'll test it here. Okay. So if I click connect, and then I see a list of them. This time I just see Action Tech. I just see one because that's the only one that's in this room. And then I click on it. Then it tells me connecting here. I see verifying security. That's good. And then hopefully I see connecting you now next. If you keep seeing verifying security for a long time, it usually means it's not going to connect. This is a bad sign.
How long is long?
Oh, and now it said couldn't connect. So usually what I do is I usually do that when I'm introducing whatever we're doing, so I can still be talking and touching without it, the kids having to be looking at anything. So then I usually try it again. And then if it doesn't work the second time, then I usually disconnect the power on the Action Tech, reconnect the power on the Action Tech, and then usually that takes care of it. Okay. There's been a couple instances, like if I, again, I'll put this here for a minute. Thank you. Because I use mine all day long, there have been times where I need to restart my computer. So like if it hasn't been signed out, it hasn't been restarted at all day, then occasionally I'll have to restart my computer, or even just signing out and signing back in.
Or something like
seems
that.
to help.
This. Then.
All right. That's it.
Yay.
Now I'm going to see those next.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Oh, I should give this.
Oh,
back
yes.
to them. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Sorry, I know it was difficult with us teaching from different parts.
All
of
good, all good.
Okay.
It was more on our end. I thought there was only two. We were prepared for two, so wanted to make sure. Cool. Thank you guys.